everyone. Today we're going to be talking about disorders of consciousness, and it's by Elise, Veronica, and Julia. For history and development, Apollic syndrome was the first one introduced in 1940. In 1972, vegetative state was used for acute phase of a coma. In 2007, vegetative state Apollic syndrome was introduced to define a cortical disconnect. And then development of persistent vegetative state, which means lasting for at least 1 month, versus permanent vegetative state, which is indicated irreversible to exist. And then DOC has evolved over the last 20 years. So 2013, prolonged disorder of consciousness, which is a national clinical guideline, were given to the degree of consistency and the level of behavior. Misperceptions and misinterpretations of terminology is a continued challenge in both the professional and research realm.
For our population, we are focusing on individuals with severe acquired traumatic brain injury who may experience a disorder of consciousness. This can include coma, vegetative state, also called unresponsive wakefulness syndrome, or a minimally conscious state. Occupational therapy can address several important occupational needs for this population. The first being sensory engagement, where OT can provide individualized sensory stimulation to support arousal and behavioral responsiveness. Another need is positioning, range of motion, and mobilization to help prevent secondary complications such as contractures or pressure injuries. OT also plays an important role in caregiver support by educating families on safe handling, positioning, and ways to provide meaningful sensory engagement during daily care routines. Key collaborators in our emergent practice area include social workers and case managers who support family needs, coordinates insurance benefits, and assists with funding sources. The speech-language pathologist assesses swallowing, communication options, and levels of consciousness, and the neurologist provides neurologic diagnosis, manages seizures, and guides medication and treatment recommendations. Physical therapy addresses mobility, tone, and spasticity management, as well as positioning needs and range of motion exercises. Finally, the pulmonologist assesses and treats breathing concerns, supports airway management, and manages tracheostomy or ventilator needs.
For occupational needs within OT, occupational needs are concerns with facilitating arousal and awareness using various treatment modalities like animal therapy, and then support recovery of consciousness and increase behavioral responses.
OT interventions and goals. Utilizing models and frame of references provide structured, evidence-based approach to our clinical practice, guiding our interventions and goal selections. Developing a tailored holistic care to enhance health and functional performance. Both assist in understanding the relationships between person, environment, and occupation. A model that we can use for this population is Model of Human Occupation, also known as MOHO. OT's goal is to identify the client's volition, habituations, performance capacities, and environmental supports and barriers to enhance participation in desired occupations. Intervention would be music and sensory stimulation therapy. Utilizing preferred tempo, music or melody, and or a silent auditory stimuli such as a family member's voice, accompanied by gentle tactile stimulation, passive range of motion, and positioning. With this in mind, the goal is to prevent secondary complications such as sarcopenia or contractures and sensory deprivation. Another approach is rehabilitative frame of reference. OT's goal is to facilitate the client to achieve the highest level of function in desired occupations to enhance occupational performance by focusing on intact abilities through adaptation, compensation, and environmental modification. An example for an intervention would be environmental modification and caregiver training. The goal is to minimize functional decline and tailorized caregiver training to support the client at home and at the community. OT long-term outcomes and objectives for this population. Taking the examples of the interventions from the previous slide, music sensory stimulation therapy, this facilitates and promotes neuroplasticity, functional arousal, and behavioral response. Enhances emotional regulation, sensory processing, and social interactions. For environmental modifications, this creates a supportive and stimulating environment that aligns with the client's needs to nourish functional independence, essentially to achieve the highest level of function and participate in desired occupations and improve quality of life, ultimately increasing safety and accessibility and enhancing occupational performance through adaptive equipment and compensatory strategies.
Thank you. Here's our references.